join this group and to comment. We will have actually 7 or 8 people, as we will have also translation. That means we'll need also a little bit more time, especially when it comes to translation. The topic is clear: the challenges, the trends, the needs from the perspective of theological education in the Balkan. And we have heard some from the church perspective. I think we still were hesitant to speak clearer from the church perspective. So in some ways I hope we will continue also this conversation on church and theological education on this. And I think this room is ideal because it kind of sets up a round table. And I think this is what we need. We need this conversation, and I hope this conversation that we start here will help us to continue as we may leave this place tomorrow morning. First of all, I'd like to again say thank you to all of the representatives, and they are all representing different institutions and some very particular concepts. That's why we have asked each of you to give us a brief introduction, information about the specific topic, area of ministry that in education that you are involved. We still have to run with the 7 minutes, and I will try to watch the clock as Greg did. So
your bell is there. Your church bell.
The bell is here. Yes. Oh goodness. You know, being an Anabaptist by my background, we are not used to church bells. But I will step over my boundaries. And may I just ask, maybe we can go this way from the right to the left. And please, if you can stay within the 7 minutes. And as you have noticed, as we go into the conversation, you can bring more as we have this conversation going. Tomislav, may I ask you to start? And let me just move on with this mic, so we have 2 at the table.
Thank you. So I represent the Bible Institute of the Christian Baptist Church in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are started by the Baptists, but our students have always been from all possible backgrounds of denominations, and still is that way. We have 2 programs. We have academic program leading to bachelor's degree, and we have what we call the lay education program, where people are collecting more specialized seminars. So this is who we are, what we do. I was joking during the break time, hearing the church needs and the critics. I'll start by telling that we should lock out the schools and quit doing the Bible schools. So if you want, you can throw tomatoes on me for that. But I'm perfectly aware, we are aware that there is not so many students around, nowhere in the Balkans. And for us, we don't start exactly every year the academic program. We always wait until we have the minimum of 5 students in the pile. But we do lay education every year. And so because of the lack of students, the needs, the smallness of the overall evangelical community, I put a list of the questions we've been discussing. There are thousands of questions we have been discussing on the board meetings of our school in relation to all these needs and challenges. And I will list some of them, and then I'll give a little bit of the case study from our perspective. So we've been discussing the online program, even the YouTube series of training, which will play really well in lay education. This decentralized, going to the churches, models, blocks instead of the constant program. We are totally aware that the relationship between the school and the church is defined by the growth So that means the church needs to grow in order that we will have a pool of students. If church is not growing, that means that we should not hope for the students. And that logically leads that there needs to happen something from the side of institutions, like a push toward the growth of the churches. The same with the church planting. There has been lots of church planting in the last 20 years in Bosnia and Herzegovinian context. If there are more churches planted, there is more need for leaders and therefore for education. If there is less of the church planting going on, then the need is not that much there. Of course, also from the institution side, I would do underline the good contact with the local churches for the case of the potential students and for the need. Also, always, however good job we do, some part of trust is always lost. So we have been discussing among the other topics, regaining the trust from the churches and denominations, redefining the purpose, cooperation between schools. Somebody has said in a previous session from the church side that there are too many schools in small countries, and amen to that. There are even too many schools in the region, and so we're brainstorming how we can actually work together, partner together, even exchange models. Not every session needs to happen in every school. Might be good to travel around with this. Lowering the cost or no cost, because it is expensive. Specialized education, which is also something very important. We have been discussing that a lot of times. We do not need specifically, for example, church planters. It's not enough to have a good bachelor degree student graduating, but how to equip people for that. In speaking to alumni, often people would say, well, the ministry has educated me. The ground where I served helped me more and the experience than the education I have received. So that's an issue to raise up. And then the last thing is always the paper valid, recognition and accreditation. I have a unique privilege actually to serve as a director of the schools, but also as a pastor and as a denominational leader. So I'm kind of personally constantly in touch with all the sides involved, which actually helps me understand the need and what is there. And this is what happened to us. 20 years ago, 21 years ago actually, precisely, I came to Bosnia and Herzegovina as a church planter, and we did not want to start a school. I know that people will start schools for various reasons and motivations, but we didn't want to. But what happened in our case is missionaries will typically come and plant a church, and there will be some local Bosnian Herzegovinian person, and likely the most mature one after 3-4 years when the missionary's term would end and they will move on, would become a leader of the newborn church. And then these people had no training whatsoever for nothing. The preaching was very bad. The approach to discipleship, to every possible side of the need of the church was poor. So we realized that these people need to be educated. Now the thing was, well, Osijek is here, Novi Sad is there are schools in the region. How we can send people there? Well, if we send them out for 3 or 4 years, there is nobody to replace them, because they are the only ones, they are the only leader. So that situation itself pushed us to start the school there on the ground. And so we had to play around with the schedule, how to make them able to continue the ministry, but also have them enough of the school hours so we would meet accreditation requirements and a solid level of education. So somehow we survived, and it's going well. I'm skipping some of the notes which you will probably receive later and for the sake of time. But another interesting thing for me from the institution side is the touch that has been mentioned, relationship between the church and the students. And so I'm personally standing on the side that this connection should never happen. Even if student needs to be sent somewhere, they need to stay connected to the local church. Because the biggest reason for mistrust between theological institutions and the churches is because churches have lost people. And I think in the previous session somebody shared about sending somebody for a master's or doctoral to the United States and the person doesn't come back. And I know of many cases when people were sent somewhere and they never came back. And I think it's very likely if you do not have constant touch with the church, if you're not in live contact with your church that is sending you for the very reason, you would be actually losing it. And so the way we are doing it is student stays in the church. Student needs to be back to the church at least for the weekends, needs to be back for the evangelistic efforts of the church, needs to be back for when the maybe short-term teams are visiting and helping out the ministry, needs to be with the church when that is needed. Even if that would occasionally mean that the student will be absent from some of the lectures. It is very, very important. It is crucial that misconnection or disconnection between the student and the church will not happen. So this is for now.
For now, thank you. May I?